The mountain village lay in the early morning mist, wooden rooftops glistening with dew. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Birds called to one another, but their cries were uneven, frantic. In a small cottage at the edge of the village, Leo, a boy no taller than a sack of flour, dashed across the floor, carrying a bucket of water. His small hands gripped it tightly, knuckles white. His father, Elias, once strong and proud, now leaned heavily on a cane, his paws shaking slightly as he tried to tie his boots. Every step looked like a struggle. "Be careful, Leo," Elias rasped, his voice thin and hoarse. Leo nodded, swallowing hard. His eyes darted toward the distant mountain peaks. Dark clouds loomed unnaturally low, black and rolling, twisting like storm smoke in the sky. Leo stepped outside. The wind hit him like a slap, tugging at his small jacket and tossing his hair across his face. A shiver ran down his spine, not from cold, but fear. The river, usually calm and glinting in the sunlight, now churned violently. Waves crashed against the stone banks, sending water spraying across the grass. "This isn't normal," he muttered under his breath. Across the village, adults hurried about, unaware of the danger. They carried baskets, shoveled ashes, and laughed nervously at Leo's frantic gestures. "It's just the wind, boy," one woman called. "Stop scaring everyone." But Leo ignored them. His eyes tracked the moving shadows in the clouds, the way the birds circled in panic. He sprinted toward the bridge where children often played. Gravel crunched under his boots. Every step sent dust into the air. "Get back! The river's rising. The storm is coming," he shouted. A gust of wind slammed into him, nearly knocking him off balance. He stumbled, catching himself just in time. Leaves and small branches whipped past his face. Rain began to fall in sharp, cold droplets. The deep rumble of thunder rolled across the mountains, echoing like a warning drum. He saw the river swell, waves hitting the banks, water creeping closer to the homes. A small goat struggled against the rising water, panicking. Leo dashed to it, grabbing it just in time, his small arm straining against its weight. Behind him, the villagers finally paused, noticing the violent wind and dark clouds above. But the storm was closer than they realized. Leo's heart pounded in his chest. He looked at his father, struggling to stand, and at the frightened villagers. If he didn't act, the river would take everything. A huge gust of wind knocked him to the ground. Gravel scraped against his palms. He pulled himself up, shaking, coughing from the dust. "Focus," he whispered. "I can do this." The clouds darkened further. Lightning streaked across the sky, and a sudden clap of thunder shook the rooftops. Leo squared his shoulders. His small frame ran toward the first danger, the swollen river, ready to consume the village. Every drop of rain, every gust of wind, every terrified cry from the villagers pressed on him. He ran faster than he had ever run. Courage burned brighter than fear. The wind screamed through the village streets like a living thing. Rain fell in sharp sheets, stinging Leo's face. Gravel and small branches flew across the road, hitting his boots, his arms, his chest. The river was no longer calm, it roared. Water slammed against the wooden bridge, threatening to snap the planks at any moment. Villagers ran in every direction, shouting, grabbing children, dragging carts and animals to safety. Chaos, panic, fear. Leo's heart pounded as he sprinted toward the bridge. His small frame was tossed by the wind, water soaking him, cold creeping through his soaked jacket. A little girl clung to her mother, trembling. Leo dove forward, gripping the girl's small arm, pulling her back from the edge of the raging river. Gravel and water splashed around them. "Hold on, I've got you," he shouted. A plank cracked beneath a frightened goat, splintering under its hooves. Leo lunged, grabbing the animal just in time, holding it close against his chest as the wind threatened to rip it away. From the mountains, a deafening roar of thunder echoed, followed by a flash of lightning that illuminated the panic-stricken village. Leo's father, struggled to help the older villagers, but his legs shook. He stumbled, nearly falling into the rising water. Leo's eyes met his father's for a fleeting moment. "I've got this," he whispered. He ran toward the village square, dodging flying debris. A broken roof tile slammed past his shoulder. He guided the elderly, the children, even frightened animals, toward the highest points of the village, safe from the river's wrath. The storm intensified. Sheets of rain pounded the ground, mixing with the river's overflow. Mud slid underfoot. Leo slipped once, nearly falling, but he caught himself on a fence post, soaked and trembling. Lightning struck the riverbank, sending a spray of water into the air, drenching him further. The villagers were terrified, but something in Leo's determination inspired them. One by one, they began following him, trusting the small boy who seemed fearless against nature's fury. A tree branch cracked above him, falling across the path. He jumped aside just in time, landing in a puddle that soaked him to the bone. But he didn't stop. He knew every second counted. He guided the last group, a young boy and his sick mother, up the slope behind the village. The river roared below them, waves smashing against anything in reach. Leo's small arms shook from exhaustion, but he didn't falter. Finally, he paused at the top of the hill, panting, soaked, teeth chattering from the cold. He looked down at the village. Some homes were flooded, some animals were lost, but the villagers were alive. For a brief moment, lightning illuminated his exhausted, muddy face, a small boy who had become a hero. But the storm was not done. The river continued to rise. Clouds rumbled. Leo's courage had saved many, but the worst was still coming. The river had risen even higher, crashing against the banks like an angry giant. Debris, broken branches, splintered planks, and household items floated violently in the currents. The village streets were mud-slicked rivers, and the wind shrieked, tearing at rooftops. Leo's small frame sprinted through the chaos. His boots sank in thick mud, water soaking through his clothes, cold biting at his skin. Ahead, a group of children and small animals were trapped near the edge of the river. One goat had panicked and slipped dangerously close to the rushing water. "Hold on, I've got you," Leo shouted, rushing forward. He slid on the mud, his hands scraping against the wet ground. But he lunged just in time to grab the frightened goat. Its hoof slipped, mud spraying into the air, but Leo held it tight, pressing it close against his chest. A young girl clung to a fence post, crying. Leo grabbed her hand, pulling her toward safety, slipping himself, but managing to keep his balance. The wind lashed at him, rain blinding his eyes. Lightning split the sky, revealing the full fury of the river, the screaming villagers, and the debris flying through the air. He ran toward the village square, dodging a falling roof tile that slammed onto the mud just inches from his feet. One by one, he helped children climb onto higher ground, a small hill, a raised stone wall, anything above the rising water. The elderly and weaker villagers followed his lead, trusting the small boy who seemed fearless amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a massive wave surged from the river, crashing toward the square. Leo grabbed a rope dangling from a broken post and swung it toward the last children, guiding them to higher ground as the water slammed around them. He slipped, mud caking his arms and boots, but his grip never faltered. From the top of the hill, he looked down at the village. Some homes were partially submerged, some animals were lost, but thanks to his courage, most villagers were safe for now. Lightning cracked again above, illuminating the river in a brilliant white flash. Leo's chest heaved, his arms ached, mud streaked his face, but he knew the storm wasn't finished. He clenched his fists and whispered, "I have to keep going. I can't stop. Not yet." The storm was at its peak. Rain pounded the village like needles, turning streets into raging mud rivers. Wind ripped through rooftops, snapping signs and sending loose planks tumbling. The river had risen to terrifying levels, slamming against the main bridge, which groaned under the pressure. Leo's boots sank into mud with every step, cold seeping into his soaked clothes. From the hilltop, he saw the worst, several villagers, trapped on the far side of the bridge and along the riverside, clinging to whatever they could. Their terrified cries were carried by the wind, distant but urgent. "I won't let them be swept away," Leo shouted to himself, teeth chattering from cold. He ran toward the broken bridge, carefully testing each plank with his small, mud-slicked boots. The first child clung to the edge, screaming. Leo lunged, gripping the child's small hands, pulling them onto the more stable section. A gust of wind slammed into him, nearly tipping him into the roaring water. Mud splashed into his eyes, but he kept going. Another wave surged, smashing against the bridge's broken side, sending water spraying into the air like needles. Leo grabbed a rope tied to a sturdy post, swinging it to the next child. Step by step, he guided them across, slipping multiple times, arms scraped and trembling, mud coating every inch of him. Behind him, a tree branch snapped, landing with a crash near the bridge. Leo ducked just in time. The elderly and weaker villagers huddled behind, watching, hearts pounding, trusting this tiny, soaked figure. Once the children were across, he turned to the old mill by the river, which was about to collapse under the flood. Inside, trapped villagers called for help. Leo ran toward the mill, mud sucking at every step, water swirling around his boots. A fallen ladder blocked the doorway. With determination, he climbed it, grabbed the first trapped villager, and lowered them carefully to safety. Lightning illuminated the village again, revealing the raging river, debris floating like deadly missiles, and Leo, small, soaked, exhausted, but unstoppable. Step by step, he rescued each trapped person, dodging falling branches and waves that threatened to sweep him away. Finally, he reached the last group, a mother and her two children clinging to the collapsing riverbank. A surge of water swept toward them. Leo lunged, grabbing their hands, pulling them toward a higher hill. Mud slid beneath him, rain drenched his body. Wind tried to push him back, but his strength, courage, and focus never faltered. He finally stood on the hill, chest heaving, mud streaked across his face, watching the river slowly beginning to calm. The storm was weakening, but the village had survived thanks to his bravery. Leo looked over the village, drenched, exhausted, but victorious. His heart pounded, realizing the final challenge of the storm was complete. The storm had finally passed. Raindrops still dripped from the rooftops. Puddles reflected the soft golden light of dawn, and the wind had softened to a whisper. The river, once a raging monster, now murmured quietly, retreating to its banks. Leo's clothes were torn and soaked. Mud streaked his face and arms. His small body trembled from cold and exhaustion, but his chest swelled with pride. He had guided children, rescued villagers, saved animals, and faced the storm head-on. One by one, the villagers emerged from their homes, brushing mud off their clothes, hugging children, checking on each other. Tears, laughter, and relief mixed together. The village had survived, and it was all because of him. Leo's father, Elias, limped toward him, eyes brimming with tears. You did it, Leo," he whispered, his voice choked. "You saved everyone. I couldn't have done it." Leo's mother ran to him, wrapping him in her arms, shivering from the cold and relief. "You're our hero," she said softly. "Our brave little hero." Children ran up, hugging his legs, cheering. Even the villagers who had doubted a small boy could make a difference now lifted him onto their shoulders, celebrating his courage. Leo looked over the village. Homes were damaged, yes. Debris scattered everywhere. But the people he loved, the children, the elderly, the animals, all were safe. He realized something: courage doesn't come from size or strength. It comes from heart, determination, and never giving up, even when everything seems impossible. Lightning had faded, the clouds had parted, and the first golden rays of sunlight lit the village. Leo's small frame, muddy and soaked, now stood as a symbol of hope and bravery. And in that moment, the villagers knew a hero can come in any size, and one heart full of courage can save a whole community. Leo finally sat on the hill, exhausted, smiling through shivers, proud and safe. The village was alive, the storm was over, and the legend of the little boy who saved the village would be told for generations.